Welcome back to Mark Carney's book club. This is part two of chapter 12. And we're talking about the technologies required to battle climate change, which has been the topic of both chapters 11 and chapter 12. The technology that we're going to discuss next is the political technology required to battle climate change. And it's all about setting the right goals. So, the core political technology we need is to value our future, to care about the generations that come after. That's because climate change is the tragedy of the horizon. Internationally, the Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs, represent the collective view of the 193 UN member states on what is required to achieve a better and more sustainable future for all. The 17 goals, underpinned by 169 targets, address social and economic challenges, from inequality to responsible consumption, that we need to tackle by the end of this decade to build a more sustainable, prosperous, and just world. The Sustainable Development Goals are an economic as well as a moral imperative. Achieving the SDGs would mean greater productivity, increased labor supply, and ultimately stronger growth. The SDGs were first agreed upon in 2015, and over the past 5 years, these international objectives have seen 125 countries representing more than half of the world's GDP start to translate their Paris pledges into public commitments to achieve net zero by 2050. At Paris in 2015, countries outlined their nationally determined contributions, or NDCs. These are country driven pledges to reduce emissions by a particular date to help meet the temperature targets in the Paris Agreement. As the name suggests, NDCs are determined by each country. They are entirely bottom up, and when added up, there is no obligation to revise individual country plans if the total exceeds the carbon budget. NDCs agreed in Paris and policy commitments that underpin them were known to be insufficient at the time to meet the agreed global goal of less than 2 degrees Celsius warming. Indeed, they were calculated as being sufficient only to keep the world on track for temperatures to rise by 2.8 degrees Celsius by the end of the century compared to pre industrial levels. In the subsequent years, nations have fallen short of their pledges, and evidence suggests that our planet is heading to between 3 and 4 degrees Celsius of warming by the end of the century. Up until now, nations have been taking global warming more seriously, but not seriously enough. Quote of someone else. You have stolen my dreams and my childhood with your empty words, and yet I'm one of the lucky ones. People are suffering, people are dying, entire ecosystems are collapsing. We are in the beginning of a mass extinction, and all you can talk about is money and fairy tales and eternal economic growth. How dare you? We will not let you get away with this. Right here, right now is where we draw the line. The world is waking up and change is coming, whether you like it or not. And that was Greta Thunberg's speech to the UN Climate Action Summit on September 23rd, 2019. I sat in the UN General Assembly Hall as these words cut through the assembled presidents, prime ministers, business leaders, and other dignitaries. People like me who were there because they felt they were committed to addressing climate change, to growing, high paying, sustainable jobs in all of our economies. We had entered feeling pretty good about ourselves. We weren't the deniers. We had recognized the risks. We were among the vanguard with pragmatic solutions to what we knew was the world's biggest challenge. And yet there it was in black and white, with the clarity and certainty of youth. We were failing. He explains how he'd met Greta a few times in the following months after watching her speak, and how she'd come to the Bank of England to interview him for a documentary and met their climate team. And just a side note, if anyone knows what documentary that is, let me know because I'd like to see that. He says Greta Thunberg and the movement she represents give hope that society won't settle. It won't settle for worthy statements followed by futile gestures. It won't settle for countries having plans for 2.8 degrees Celsius of warming that they then don't even meet. It won't settle for companies that preach green but don't manage their carbon footprints. It won't settle for financial institutions who can't tell whether their investments and loans are on the right or wrong side of climate history. The more the financial sector focuses on the transition to net zero, the more the new technological solutions will be financed in the expectations of climate action. The more that savers and investors will be able to track whether their investments are consistent with their values and, if not, reallocate them accordingly. Sustainable investing can shift from the fringes to the mainstream, greatly increasing the chances of success. The point is that social movements can move slowly and then with surprising speed. For variously termed social memes, behavioral cascades, moral sentiments, these shifts in values can suddenly drive immense change. That wraps up the political technology piece. The third technology that he covers, which is what technology needs to be developed in order to combat climate change, is financial technology. And we'll start that one next. And the purpose of this one is to ensure that every financial decision takes climate change into account. When I was named the special envoy of the UN Secretary General for Climate Action and UK Prime Minister's advisor for climate finance, we formed a small team of experts seconded from the Bank of England and Whitehall and set ourselves a simple but vital task to have in place by COP26 in Glasgow all the necessary foundations so that every financial decision takes climate change into account. This requires a fundamental reordering of the financial system so that all aspects of finance, investments, loans, derivatives, insurance products, whole markets, systemically take the impact of their actions on the race to net zero. The objective is a financial system in which climate change is as much a determinant of value as creditworthiness, interest rates, or technology, where the impact of an activity on climate change is a new vector, a new determinant of value so that as readers of this book will recognize value reflects values. This requires major changes to pretty much every aspect of finance, reporting, risks, and returns, and will require the creation of some new markets. While the actions of the private sector have been part of the problem in the past, we won't solve climate change in the future without the private sector. The amount of the money required is too great, and we need more than private sector money. We need its insights and its innovation. As we have seen, achieving net zero requires a whole economy transition. Every company, every bank, every insurer and investor will have to adjust their business model. This, in turn, requires a new sustainable financial system to fund private sector innovation, amplify the effectiveness of government climate policies, and accelerate the transition. Its building blocks are reporting, disclosure of climate related financial impacts must be comprehensive, climate risk management needs to be transformed, and returns. Investing for a net zero world must go mainstream. On the reporting changes that need to be made, he says markets require information to operate effectively. He puts the quote, what gets measured gets managed. So companies and their investors need to understand how physical risk of climate change, for example, weather events and transition risks, affect business models and financial results. He explains how in the past few years, there has been a positive change in the quantity, quality, and comparability of the reporting of the risks and opportunities of climate change. The TCFD is the Task Force on Climate Related Financial Disclosures and was established by the FSB at COP21 in Paris in 2015. Task Force members were drawn from the private sector from across advanced and emerging G20 economies, including major companies, large investors, global banks and insurers, all the major accounting firms, and credit rating agencies. As such, they represented a true cross section of those who prepare, demand, and use climate related financial disclosures. All right, so we're going to end that part here. Next, we're going to finish up the reporting changes as well as dive into risk management and some other things that are going to help the financial sector adjust and help with our battle against climate change. So stay tuned for that.